If you're posting consistently, if you're sharing your work, if you're showing up on LinkedIn or Instagram, but you still are not getting the inquiries that you really want, then there's a good chance that the problem isn't the algorithm, and it's probably not even that you're not consistent enough. A lot of people are posting every single day. Now, the real problem is that you're creating content that attracts designers and not buyers. And this is the biggest mistake I see on all social platforms for creative people. And that's a mistake that I see all the time, and it's crazy how many times I've mentioned it to people and they go, oh yeah, I get what you mean. It's not always obvious from their perspective, and I totally get it. There's a huge difference between content that gets the right attention or gets actual clients. Now, a lot of people are very good at getting a lot of attention, but usually they're just not the right people. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you how you can actually start attracting the right people and exactly the types of content you should be making. That's going to make a huge difference. The frustrating reality is I hear all the time from agency owners is they say, Helen, we're posting regular content and nothing's happening. Okay, but are you actually following the structures? Are you following the strategy that I'm giving you? Obviously not. And when I go and look at their content, it usually looks great. The branding looks good, the visuals look good, the work's impressive, and then I ask myself one question: why would a potential client actually want to read this or watch this? And that's not being harsh at all. This is just the reality of how you need to think about your content, because most clients aren't just scrolling on LinkedIn thinking, I hope I see a beautiful logo today, or I hope I see a beautiful website today. They're not thinking that at all. They're thinking, how do I get more business? How do I get more interest in my company? Why are my sales down at the minute? Why are my sales team not busy enough? How do we stand out? How do we start making people actually go to our shop and buy from us? They're the things they're thinking. Okay, so there is a big difference, and there's a big difference in perspective that most people aren't actually paying attention to. They're focused on business problems, and most agencies and creatives are focused on design. Okay, now nobody's ever going to be as passionate about you about design because they're not designers. And it's funny because I used to say the same thing to my partner when we ran kickboxing clubs on the side, and I used to say to him, he used to get frustrated when people didn't train enough and they didn't really take it as seriously as we did. And yeah, I'd say exactly the same thing to him. They're not going to be as passionate about it. They only train once a week. And it's the same kind of thing. Okay, you can't expect your ideal clients to be as passionate about what you love as you do. Okay, that's why you do what you do, and that's where the disconnect starts though, and why we need to think about this in a new way. So the big mistake really is just that agencies are creating a lot of content for people that already understand design and not for the people actually buying design. And there's a big difference. So designers notice all the detail, they notice the typography, the colours, the layout, the creativity, they notice the kerning, they notice everything. Okay, now clients, they don't really notice those things. Clients notice outcomes, trust, confidence, and clarity. And a prospect isn't usually going to ask, is this the most creative agency? They're going to ask, can these people solve my problems? If your content never answers those questions, that's why people aren't talking to you. Now, the portfolio trap is such a common situation. Don't get me wrong, you should absolutely be showcasing your work, but here's what a lot of agencies do and why they get stuck. They post projects after project, more and more work, things they're really proud of, and that's great, but it doesn't resonate with everyone. Okay, it doesn't resonate with the right people. And every post says something like, here's a recent brand project we did, or we love working with this client, and that's it. No context, no problem, no story, no lesson, no kind of business outcome. So this means that you're not really giving enough information. Yes, you've done some great work, but what's it for? What's it done? How's it improved their business? We need to really understand actually what has happened here rather than just throwing the work at them and going, oh, we enjoyed doing this. Okay, great. But it's going to make them scroll by. It's not going to make them want to know more. Your ideal client is going to find that very hard to connect with or find a reason to want to talk to you just from that. And Instead, imagine saying this company was struggling to explain what made them different from other companies. They were struggling to be taken seriously when they walked into certain meetings because they didn't have the right kind of presentations, or you've got to really start helping them see the situation. And now you've got their attention. Okay, now they understand, oh yeah, that's me. That's what happens when I walk into that room. I feel like that. Okay, because that's a business problem. And then you can explain what you've changed and what effect you've had and the impact you've had afterwards from all the amazing work you've done, and what other businesses can learn from it as well. Suddenly the content becomes really useful. It's something that people want to read. It's not just beautiful. The main shift that changed everything for me was the one thing that I realised. It took me a long time to realise this, and in a way I feel a bit silly that it took me so long to realise, but content that performs really well is when people really feel understood. They feel like you understand them so well that they have to talk to you, because it's like, oh my God, how do they know all of this? How do they really understand my situation so well? And they're so impressed by that. So it's not about trying to impress, which is what a lot of creatives and agencies do. They try and impress, talking about all these awards and all these amazing companies they've worked with, which is great. And yes, it is amazing, but it's not going to impress somebody from outside of your world. Okay, it's not about impressing, it's about understanding and showing that you understand. And I want you to start thinking about the content that you stop and read. Why did you stop and read that? Start noticing the hooks and the things that make you stop and actually read it properly and want to know more. It's usually because somebody describes something that's happening to you right now. They've really started to notice something that is a really common feature within your industry that you guys are struggling with. So you feel like they've read your mind. You feel like, oh wow, how did they know that? Like it's magic. And it's not magic. It just means that they've done their research. And this is how powerful content can be. Great agency content identifies problems, it identifies frustrations, it challenges assumptions, it gives people language for problems that they've maybe really found hard to articulate themselves. And then they also obviously trust you because you're being that leader, that thought leader, the person that's actually helping explain what's really going on for them. Let me make this really practical for you. Now, there are so many different types of content, but today I'm only going to talk about the three main ones that I think are really key for you to start actually applying right now to your marketing. Type 1 is problem content. Now, we want to make sure that this is content about challenges that your audience is facing, things that they really struggle with, things like maybe why referrals are drying up, why people are struggling to charge more, why websites aren't converting, like that kind of thing, why positions feel why communication feels unclear, why people are getting rejected with proposals or whatever your ideal client does, why they're getting rejected, why they're feeling like no one's listening, all that kind of thing. Okay, so pay attention to all of the things that people tell you. Pay attention to the things that your ideal clients are struggling with, and take time to listen to them properly. Type 2, so another type of content that's really important is belief shifting content. So you'll start to notice that your ideal clients are actually believing things that are harming them, that are holding them back from achieving what they want. So you have to start figuring out what they really believe about their situation that is stopping them from achieving what they want. Now, most agencies don't need more leads, they need better positioning. Okay, now that's one example that you could use, obviously not for agencies. But yeah, it's about helping you challenge your thinking. So think about ways you can talk about maybe what they think and then what the real problems are. Type 3 is solution content. Now, this is where you teach frameworks, you teach processes, lessons, case studies, all that kind of stuff. But this is where people start seeing how you actually think. And that's really important because people aren't just buying the work they see, they're buying you for a reason, because they want to have confidence that you think in a way that they agree with, think in a way that they can see as a smarter, better way to do something. So they want to know that there's a process behind this. You're not just making it up, and there are proper ways to do things that you've worked out from your experience are better ways to do it. Overall, most content won't create inquiries if it's just very vague, very general, if you're talking to everyone. Obviously, it creates inquiries because it's relevant, because it's specific, because it's really understanding what your ideal client is going through. The most successful agency content is surprisingly simple, and it just speaks directly to the problem, talking about one thing at a time. Now, your posts don't have to go viral. All we want to do is make sure the right people are looking and watching and interacting if possible. And a lot of bigger companies don't interact, they just watch, and that's okay too. But you will start to see people reaching out from your content when you've got those things right. Always go deeper and start to think about more of an emotional connection with your audience, like you're talking directly to them, and that will beat perfection every time. And the last thing to talk about, which is where many people struggle, so don't worry if this is you, but they start to create content before they've actually got clarity with their own business positioning. And that's a massive mistake because you don't really know what direction you're going in, what kind of audience you're helping, like what are the main problems you're solving. You don't really understand enough about the direction your own business is going. So it's very confusing to then try and create content in the way that we've talked about today. Is just actually quite impossible. So if you don't know who you're helping, you don't know what problem you're solving, and you don't know why you're different, then I would not start content quite yet because it just becomes so random, so haphazard, and very confusing to your audience. If your content isn't bringing in clients right now, don't assume that you need to post more. Don't assume the algorithm is against you, and just ask yourself, am I creating content that buyers actually care about? Am I actually helping my audience? Am I creating content that other designers care about? Just make sure you're talking to the right people, because there are two very different things there, and the agencies that attract the best clients are always understanding them so well. They've done so much research that it's impossible to get it wrong. Make sure you're creating content that demonstrates understanding, content that creates trust and solves problems, and that will turn into attention that actually turns into conversations. If you have 10 content ideas that you can use immediately to attract your ideal client, comment content below. And if your agency is wanting to obviously get a bit more help, please feel free to book a call, and I'm happy to have a chat with you. If you just want to stick around, learn more on YouTube, please subscribe and share with your friends. Have an amazing week.